What's going on, guys? So I really wasn't sure if I was going to make this video, and that's because when I did the Harley Davidson revival video without having my hands on it, I just don't know if I liked how that felt or not. So since I didn't have the Sportster S in front of me, I didn't have access to one. They won't be out until later this fall. I didn't think I was going to do a video about it, and then because of like some personal stuff that I was working on, I also wasn't going to be able to make a video until way late, and at this point, so many other YouTubers have done really, really good reviews of what this bike is. They've gone over specs, etc. So we're not going to do that in this video. I will give you my opinion on the bike and go over a few things that I did like, but this video is to kind of address some of the criticism that this bike specifically has gotten, but it's kind of Harley as a whole as well. So we'll jump into that now. So I've seen a lot of criticism now, like don't get me wrong, I've also seen a lot of memes, a lot of them that I genuinely thought were funny and laughed at myself. But I've seen a lot of trash talk from people, and I started to notice a theme. So, I'm in the dealership, I hear people talking, I read some stuff on the forums, I read YouTube comments on other videos of this model, and I noticed a common theme. All the people that were kind of bashing this kind of struck me as the kind of people that don't like Sportsters to begin with. The kind of people that are like, oh, a Sportster's a girl bike or a beginner bike or whatnot. That's who seemed like were making all these comments. So they didn't like the original Sportster. I don't really expect them to like the new one. And everyone is entitled to their opinion, so I get it. But when you're listening to these kind of people, just take that into consideration that they didn't like the former model of the Sportster. So the fact that they like the new one should have no weight on your decision to get the bike or not get the bike. I also thought it was really funny as I was watching other YouTubers review this bike just so I could learn about it, because with a bike that I don't have my hands on, I learn about it the same way you guys do by watching other YouTubers talk about it. And a guy started his video off, I wish I could remember the name because I would give him a shout out or plug him or shame him or whatever we're about to do here. But he started his video off by saying that he had been notoriously hard on Harley Davidson in the past. And then within the next few sentences went on to say he's never actually ridden a Harley Davidson. So how you critique and review Harley Davidson's decisions and products without actually like physically interacting with those machines, I'm not really sure, but dude had a ton of following, so apparently people listen to him, and that's kind of concerning to me. That would be like me weighing in on Lamborghini having never driven a Lamborghini. It makes no sense. So this led me down a rabbit hole of thinking about the other type of comments that I was seeing, saying that Harley was making a huge mistake with this bike and this was going to be the demise of the company and all kind of, super heavy criticism just based around this one bike. So it kind of made me want to pose a question to those type of people and say, hey, does Harley make a model that you do like currently? And if that's the case, then why are you so worried about that one if they still make what you like? So my personal preference, I'm not into the Harley Davidson Fat Boy, but I don't get mad that Harley Davidson makes that model because they make a ton of other models that I do like. So the Fat Boy is just not on my radar. I'm not going to be a consumer of it. And Harley's not like one of these brands where they make you buy a certain thing to be able to get some of the other stuff. Like that's one thing I've learned recently is in the watch world. Like sometimes you have to buy like the less desirable Rolexes to be able to go into Rolex and buy the stuff that most people want. And I've heard the same thing about like Ferrari. Harley doesn't do that. So they're not going to make you start with one of these to be able to end up on a street glide. You can walk in the dealership, and as long as you've got the money or credit to do so, you can leave with whatever you want. Now, if the answer to that question is no, it kind of makes me want to ask, do you just not like Harley Davidson at all? Which again is fine. You're entitled to that. But for you to constantly criticize every model is kind of funny. But also that's going to throw people off that may be interested in it and, value your opinion. And now your opinions may be valid for not liking Harley based on whatever your needs is. I mean, like if you're a sport bike guy and Harley has no sport bikes, obviously you're not going to care for Harley. They don't make anything that appeals to you, and I get that. But again, take those opinions with a grain of salt because you're just never sure where they're coming from unless the people elaborate. And now a YouTube comment or something like that, you never get that extended version of why they feel that way. Sometimes you even ask and they can't explain, which is also hilarious. So now the argument could be made that, well, maybe Harley should try to appeal to these people. The idea being that now you're going to bring new riders into the brand that weren't currently interested. So you've got a complete new customer. However, the flip side of that coin is I hear nonstop, with the live wire, with this, and there's been other models where hardcore people are talking about Harley has forgotten their core customer. They need to keep their core customer base happy. Harley's forgetting who got them on top or who got them here or what have you. And that's true. I can see both sides of that argument. There is an argument for attracting new customers. There is an argument for trying to retain the core customers. So that kind of lets you see what a predicament Harley Davidson is in while trying to do that balancing act. I'm not sure where they should put more focus. That's something I would actually be curious to hear from you guys. Leave me a comment down below and let me know where you think Harley should be focusing most of their efforts. New customers are keeping current ones happy because, as we can see, it's a very delicate balance trying to do both. All right, so before I give my personal opinions on this bike, I want to kind of get something out of the way, and that's that this YouTube channel is my own. I do some work for Timms Harley Davidson, and they have been gracious enough to let me come into the dealership, make all the reviews, use their inventory, kind of at my disposal, if you will. Anything I've ever wanted to do, it's never been a question of, being able to do it. They've always just let me do it. So I'm very thankful to them for that. But with that, they've also never asked me to be super nice when I'm doing reviews or talking about the motor company. They've never asked me to say anything, and they've never asked me not to say anything. I have complete creative freedom when I do these videos, and I'm very thankful for that. With that, obviously, I also don't have any ties to the motor company directly. Now, could that change in the future? Possibly, but just so you guys know, if it ever was proposed in a way that I wouldn't be able to maintain that complete creative freedom to criticize where I see fit, which I've done in the past, I don't feel like I'm unnecessarily hard on the motor company, but I give my opinion. Like I said in this thing 3 times already, everyone's entitled to their opinion. So if it ever compromised me being able to give my true opinion, I wouldn't even work with the motor company no matter how sweet the deal was. Now that we have all that out of the way, I want to start by saying I have very little time on the Pan America. Now, I know this video is not about the Pan America, but same motor on these 2 motorcycles. Obviously, I think this one's going to be kind of detuned, if you will, a little bit. So the Pan America number is 150 horsepower, which is far beyond what any, production model Harley Davidson comes with. I want to say the big touring bikes or the 114s are right there around 90 horsepower or something. Granted, completely different motor, but still very impressive numbers by Harley Davidson. So even if this thing comes in, and they may have, again, I'm so out of the loop at this point right now, they may have even stated a number, but I think I was speculating in my Sportster video that I did last, 120 horsepower, and I think I heard that on another YouTuber's, but I don't know if that was speculation or if that's the number that's come out. So with that, this motor will be phenomenal because the time that I do have on the Pan America, that's one thing I can say is it's an absolute monster. I've played around on it some in sport mode and stuff, and when you hit the gas, the bike is gone. Like it's real deal power. So I'm excited for that. The second observation, which is extremely obvious as soon as you hit that start button, is this sounds nothing like a conventional Harley Davidson. You're going to have to get past that because you're never going to do anything. I'm not the super tech guy. I've watched videos on what gives Harley their sound, and this would be a completely just way too long. This video would just be way too long if we tried to go into that, and I would just be repeating something I've heard, not something I 100% understand. But regardless, this motor will never sound like a conventional Harley Davidson. So if that's a big deal for you, then obviously this is definitely not the bike for you. Now, when I was watching Harley's reveal video on this bike, one of the things that jumped out at me was the screen that's on this bike, particularly the tech that's in there. You can actually hook your phone to it. It's got the different ride modes. I really like that. I like tech, and I like it in my bikes. Now, I can also appreciate a bike that's kickstart and has a magneto and doesn't need a battery and all this other stuff. But to be completely honest, I'm not that guy every day. Like, I'd love to ride one of those. I'd love to own something like that. It would be fun to build. I can appreciate them for what they are, but I have a lot of tech in my truck. I want a lot of tech on my bike. It just makes it more functional, easy to use. Again, haven't been hands-on, so I don't know all the ins and outs of the things that the screen is capable of, but I like that it looks super techy and will be a little more modern. Because that's another criticism I've heard about Harleys. Oh, their tech is so behind, you know. And I ask people, especially if those comments get left on my YouTube, I say, compared to what? You know, what other manufacturer do you know that has something else? And this isn't me defending Harley. This is me genuinely curious, you know, to know your guys' thoughts on what else is out there. But then it's like, what about those other bikes, tech, would you want to see on Harley? And usually I don't get a response on stuff like that. And I don't know if they don't have an answer, if it was just a, hey, I want to come on here and bash Harley, or they don't see it. But regardless, I've heard very few arguments for like super tech stuff. Now, I know there's a lot of bikes out there that have like crazy tech on them. I'm just saying, let's compare apples to apples as far as like, say, the cruiser model of any other manufacturer. What do they have that Harley doesn't? And I mean, if you know of something that stands out to you, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know about that as well. Now, something that I noticed about the bike but didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to, but I've heard it come up several times now, people saying that Harley messed up by making that bike a single front disc brake setup. Now, obviously, that's important to me, and that's something I noticed because every review I've ever done, I think I've pointed out whether the bike has single or dual disc on the front for the brakes. And I've also said that I prefer dual disc. The reason for that is that, like, if I go ride in the mountains or something, sometimes those brakes can heat up and you get a little bit of brake fade. Now, when I go ride a bike that has a single disc, it's never failed me. It's never even gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, this bike is not going to stop, or I feel uncomfortable. It was just noticeable. Now, I can only speak for myself, but I feel pretty confident in saying that we're not good enough riders where we absolutely have to have dual disc. Do I prefer it? Absolutely. So I get where people are coming from. It's just kind of funny to me when people can't exceed the capabilities of that single disc, saying that Harley has messed up by not going dual disc. And then finally, the thing I want to point out is the price. So I think I did speculate that this bike would be, man, I can't remember now. I want to say I said right around $13,000. Well, it ended up being $15,000, which is the exact same price as a brand new Street Bob with a 114 in it. That also makes less power and has less technology. So again, guys, when you're comparing these things, it's got to be apples to apples. These are two very, very, very different machines. And with that, I think you have to look at the price. So one of the YouTubers that I was watching talk about this bike was Shade Tree Surgeon, and I want to give him some credit. He did a good video. He made a similar video to this one, but one thing he pointed out was something that I agree with, that if you don't like this one, just know, we know based on what Harley has done in the past, that this is not the only new model of a Sportster you're going to see. So they're going to make something that you like. So what he was expanding upon was Harley almost always gives us a standard version. So the Softail standard, the Electroglide standard, they give you a stripped down version, a blank canvas to go ahead and kind of build the bike you want to build. He believes, and I agree with this as well, that Harley has come out of the gate and shown us their like most decked out, top of the line model of the Sportster, if you will. And I have to tend to agree. So I was speculating that a model would come out with that 975 that they were teasing was going to be in the Bronx model, that I don't even think as of right now is even going to be a thing anymore. But that let us know that they do have a smaller engine in that same configuration. So maybe they do a similar bike with a smaller engine, or maybe they take away some of the bells and whistles. I know that Sportster S is showing a very fat bob looking headlight, that big rectangular light. I happen to like. I think it goes well with that fat front tire, both on the fat bob and on the Sportster S. But I'm also sure that costs a premium. They could put something a little smaller, go conventional with the round headlight. Not necessarily on that bike, but what I'm saying is they could kind of, you don't want to say cut corners, but they could give you something that's not as premium, and then they don't have to charge you the premium for it. So I would imagine that that Sportster S at 15 grand is going to be the top of the line, and you're going to get a few Sportster models that come in somewhere a little under that. And they've also haven't said the conventional Sportster motor, the Evo Sportster, is completely gone. That's my gut feeling, and I feel like it is. They haven't said that yet. So I would say if they're going to go ahead and get away from that, not do any more for 2022, that they're at least going to give us 2 to 3 more models to choose from, and hopefully a much more entry-level price point. So I have spoken with Timms to see when we could expect one. They don't have like a hard date yet. It's just fall of 2021, which is what Harley's saying as well. Obviously, the day that we get one, I will go and I will make a hands-on review video for you guys with a test ride, pending that first model is not already sold. I don't ride customer bikes. If it does get sold before it even gets to the dealership, I will ask them to ask the customer if they would mind leaving it for a day for me to make a review, and we just won't do the test ride. That's all I've got for this video, but I am curious what you guys are thinking. Is the Sportster S appealing to you? Is it not appealing? Does the price scare you off? Let me know your thoughts down below, especially if you do plan on getting one, or at least you think you want to get one. Clearly you want to kind of, put your eyes on it, put your hands on it, go for a ride on it, see what it's about. But if it's everything you think it is and you were thinking about getting one, let me know down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.